we're on. We'll have to see in a moment if it comes on. But welcome, Earthlings, non-Earthlings, ridiculous ones, soon to be ridiculous ones. You were right on time, 8:02 for the ridiculous hour. I'm very thrilled to have Rufus here as well. Very thrilled to have two of my best buds here, Derrick Bros and Oskar Doc Mojo Gonzalez Shitsira. Welcome, brothers. How are y'all today?
Good.
Cool. So we have a mic right there, but you might need to speak up a little bit. Okay, cool. So we are confirmed. We're on YouTube Live now, so people can be joining there. All right, excellent. So let's first off pretend that people don't really have any idea about what's going on, assuming there's going to be a few people. Just a real brief summary. Does either one of y'all want to volunteer for a summary of this? That's going to be both of y'all, looks like.
Okay, you talking about specifically about Standing Rock?
Yeah, about how this all started, the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Sure. So the Dakota Access Pipeline is a project that's going across the country, and it's been opposed in different ways in Iowa and mainly in North Dakota, which is Standing Rock, where everybody's been focused on. It's been opposed for cultural reasons, spiritual reasons, as well as environmental reasons. People worried about what's going to happen if and when the pipeline bursts. Also, those who are worried about the destruction of sacred sites, burial sites for the Standing Rock Sioux on the reservation out there and off the reservation as well. And yeah, so that's been the big thing. It started back in April. The actual Sacred Stone Camp was first established then, and it's just grown. Became, I think, a focus of national attention, at least through social media, in August once the construction actually began. And people started directly opposing the construction, and that's when we saw the dogs sicked on people and the first mace spraying got people really upset, and that's when we started getting more involved as far as actually going there and helping how we could. And since then, we've just seen this fight increase, both with the militarization of the police response to the water protectors, and it's dragged on now for months. Now, kind of reaching this new phase where the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers said they're going to deny the permit for the final easement of the pipeline, which some people view as a victory, others view as maybe a temporary victory, or something like that, or maybe even a distraction. So it's kind of where we're at now, briefly.
Cool. Yeah, and I think one of the key elements to this pipeline specifically is that it goes under the Missouri River, which is a huge deal. And if you look at what water sources pull from the Missouri River going southbound, it's pretty much the middle United States is affected here. In a way, we kind of got lucky that it landed so close to Indian ground, or maybe they would have just slipped it in and no one would have even found out about it. So it's kind of lucky for us that live in Texas and Louisiana and Arkansas that the indigenous tribes decided to take this on, because shucks, if it would have gone somewhere differently and not near their reservation, we would have all just been screwed. There's a lot of people that post that picture, which pipeline do y'all have a problem with again? It's like they have all these,
all of them
pipelines. Yeah, it's like literally all of them. Look at you look at that picture and then search, how many leaks there have been across the United States. It's a very similar picture. Guess what? All the leaks are where all the pipelines are. And just some real quick stats: 176,000 gallons of crude oil was leaked on December 5th in Belfield, North Dakota, which is 150 miles from Standing Rock. And you guys, it's like, I used to work in oil and gas, where we dealt a lot with oil going into the Gulf. I worked on a deep water platform, and it was 19 parts per million, where what was the target? 29 parts per million, and anything over that pretty much would sheen. That's why they set the target like that, because you could fly a helicopter over and see who's sheening, that's who's out of compliance. But that means about 30 parts per million oil is what sheens on the top. So that means it's literally 30, so that means 30 gallons of oil contained 100 million gallons of water. And that's just sheening. Before that 30 parts per million is in the water, and it's just going to taste like shit. So, we don't realize, sometimes how little oil it takes to ruin a whole lot of water downstream. And the facts are, they have not invented a pipeline yet that doesn't leak. They just haven't done it, And yeah, it might have a 20-year run. 20-year run's a great run. So what are we going to tell our kids? Sorry about that, hey, at least I'm going to die soon. Anything you wanted to add to the intro, Oskar?
Just also that to catch people up on what else is going on in Standing Rock. There's a very large spiritual movement that is going on there. A lot of prayer, a lot of healing, um, a lot of self healing and cultural healing for a lot of folks. There's been a lot of repairs to ties that have been broken by different tribes and cultures as well, different ethnicities. That there's been a lot of hurt between different cultures is repairing now. They're showing a lot of love in a lot of different ways.
Sometimes a common fight is the best thing to get groups together. How many tribes do you think are there? I've heard numbers of 150 or more, 200 or more. How many different tribes? Do you have any idea?
There were like over 500 tribes at one point in time.
Is that right? So 500 tribes involved.
But these are
all
like
over the world.
Yeah, from all over the place that came into the Asante Shikon camp there.
Yeah. And so, Oskar, can you tell us a little bit about the recent, I'm going to put victory in quotes. I don't know how big a victory it is yet, but I mean, I think certainly it's at least a battle won. It's not the war. What has happened recently that has a lot of people thinking that this is going to be a win for us?
Well, it's an interesting situation. Derrick was just up there. I think he can talk a little bit more about the recent events that are going on, or that have been going on up there. But the fight is not over at all. I know for our brothers and sisters up there, they say that the fight isn't over until there's no pipeline, the construction stops, and the construction crew goes home. I do sense that this is a big victory in the fact that by the time that those things were announced, the movement had gained so much, had spread so much awareness. Many people across the United States who were not as aware in September, now in December, were very much aware, and I feel that is why there was some pressure put. Um, but that's a victory in itself, that it was getting a lot of attention. Um, but it's not the end of the battle. It's not the final victory. Honestly, when we look at it, the final victory will really be when we stop utilizing fossil fuels and move over to sustainable energy. And that's something that we're stuck in right now, where there's you get it. As a supporter, you get it all the time, where they're like, well, you use electricity, and we have cars, and we have this. Do you want us to go back to? It's ridiculous how people think. Honestly, if I can just speak clearly or freely, so many people think so ridiculously. They're like, well, if we give these things up, what are we going to go back to a horse and a buggy and blah blah? And it's just like, no one is telling you that you cannot have lights and you cannot have cars. Like, there are alternate ways to fuel those things that don't destroy the earth, that can keep you and we have that knowledge and that technology. That's the funny thing, is people think that we have to then go into another 50 years of research. No, all this knowledge is already here. Like, there are middle schoolers that are winning awards for their ideas that could change the way we fuel our vehicles and power our homes. There are cities throughout the nation that are changing the way. So Alamo, Texas, a small town in the valley, their street lights and their city lights are no longer powered by fossil fuels. They're powered by solar energy. So when the sun goes down, their street lights turn on. They're powered by solar lights. Yeah. It's just we have to come out of those mindsets, and that's really when this battle will be won. I do think it's a victory now because people are waking up, and so that allows those of us who are in these fights to speak more clearly to people, get them to understand what exactly is going on. There's still a lot of confusion with a lot of people. A lot of people don't know what's going on. You get the same thing. Well, they're on private land. There's a lot of backstories and histories that people still need to learn so that they can understand exactly what is going on with all of these movements.
And yeah. I mean, I think technology-wise, it's 2016. Like we have all the technologies necessary to replace, oil and gas and coal. We just haven't done it yet because economics hasn't worked out. I mean, I remember seeing some figures like when gas is above 4.50 a gallon, it becomes really, beneficial to move to these other things. And when that came out and these things started coming out, that's when the price of gas jumped down because they weren't ready to give up their gravy train they've been sitting on for this long. And so, the price of gas has already been driven down to keep the new technologies coming in. And these companies are obviously doing whatever they can to keep that from happening. But the bottom line is we already have the technologies. This isn't 1950. This pipeline might have been a better idea, not a good idea, but a better idea in 1950. But right now, when we're on the cusp of all these new technologies, to drop this huge pipeline into the ground, it makes no sense. I mean, we're past that. Like, we're moving away from it. And this is a 30 to 50 year, project. I mean, a pipeline payback is like 30 to 50 years. And that's about the same time that it starts to leak. And then by that time, I would imagine the way they do this stuff is Energy Transfer Partners, when it's time to, pay the piper and there's leaks everywhere and it's like, okay, well, who's responsible? Who's liable? That company's going to be long dissolved. They're going to do that on purpose. That company's going to be gone. You go to look for who's liable. There's nothing. All the lawyers have signed off that they're no longer liable, and the company that was liable is now non-existent. So how do we do that? Like, what does that look like in terms of moving to the new technologies, and how do we show the people that are in power that we have the ability to make that move? Because as a group, we're not doing so great at it. Let's just be honest. We're all using gas. We're all using, we're not on alternative. Most of us. There's a few communities that are obviously.
Yeah, but
Germany's doing
we can become more aware of our use of those things, how much we consume. Do we have lights on just because lights are on? Are we, driving just to drive?
Let's turn these lights off.
Are we carpooling when we can? Do you live in Midtown and work in downtown, and do you drive to work?
Or do you ride your bike over like Derrick did just now?
Yeah, there are many ways that we can become, more aware, and it's just everybody's individual journey. Right now, as a people, as a society, I believe that we are in a transitioning phase. We're coming from an old mindset of people who are enslaved into a way of thinking that this is the only way you can have some sort of comfort, and then another group of people who are coming in, the new generation, who is saying, no, we can still have these comforts, but we can do it in a better way, or that they're waking up to what is around them, turning off lights, not using so much water, carpooling, things like that. We're in a transitioning phase.
So, in terms of what's next, the word is don't leave Standing Rock. We're wanting to send more people there, not less. So, what's the next move in terms of the camps there? Like, what's going on? Are they ramping up? Because it seemed like a few people were talking about coming home, but then the word got out like, no, don't go home. And then a blizzard hit. I don't really know how that blizzard has affected. Have people left? Has there been large numbers leaving just for the weather? Do you know that?
Well, I left on Thursday, last Wednesday afternoon, and got home Thursday, and that was right before the second part of the blizzard, because we drove in on the 28th through a blizzard, came in there, and so the camp was hit pretty hard for a day or so, and then it sort of died down. It was heavy snow the whole time, but there was some sunny days, but then towards the end, last Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, it started snowing pretty bad, and another blizzard was coming through. So there was people leaving, but it could have just been people that were already planning to leave because we had such a mass flooding of people on the weekend. Because they were expecting, they were either coming to support the veterans, or they were veterans, or they were expecting something to happen
December
on Monday.
5th date.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a flood of people coming in, and Monday and Tuesday, some of those were filtering out as well. But it was definitely getting rough out there. I know some other friends of mine who were out there reporting, they were going from the camp back to Bismarck, which is like a 45-minute to an hour drive, and it took them 4 hours, and they passed about like 20 wrecks on the way. It just became unsafe to really drive for some of the days there, and so I'm sure that's discouraging some people. You know, we definitely saw it as like, okay, we have a window here to leave once the weather cleared up briefly.
Yeah, because you were coming back anyway.
Yeah, we were coming back. We weren't really sure when we were going to come back exactly, but we figured, you know, it was either go then or stay after the blizzard, and we decided to go. But as far as what's happening at the camp, I can say just my personal experience at Sacred Stone that for the third trip that I've made since August, this 2 trips with Oskar and the third trip with a couple other friends, that the atmosphere was definitely different. Sacred Stone, I think, it seems to be some of the people who were there before that were really keeping the spiritual prayer element have gone, or just certain of those elements have disappeared. And there's just tons of people coming through different projects, starting people who come in with different energies, different ideas, and some things just get left behind. I think really, as far as my concern, or one thing that I would like to help on the future with Staying Rock is just going back, whatever happens, and helping clean up, because there is going to be a lot of remediation that's going to need to be done to that land that doesn't typically have tens of thousands of people coming through there, driving their cars all over the place, and all that stuff. Plus, there's literally on both sides, Machete and Sacred Stone, there's just tents full of jackets, supplies, all kinds of stuff, and an abundance of more than people there were. There was, because of the amount of support, there was so many supplies, and it's just, I think some people's mindset just going over that side wasn't necessarily what it had been in the past, or what we witnessed in the past. And I can say, just to be frank, that going back the third time, that there was definitely people there going against the elders' wishes that those places be drug-free and alcohol-free. And that was something I hadn't seen in previous trips before. So the camp atmosphere was kind of changing as well. So that was an interesting, just like background to everything else going on. But also the camps were sort of in a place of like excitement. There's fireworks going off the night that we found out that they were going to deny the permit. But everybody was still like, okay, well this this isn't necessarily the end. Like, this just means they're going to reroute it somewhere else, or maybe Energy Transfer Partners is going to do it anyways, because the amount that they may be fined is much less than they stand to lose if they don't fulfill their business agreements with their partners by January.
Yeah, they could be fined millions and it'd still be worth their while.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they just want this done. I mean, for even without the budget, just from a publicity standpoint, they just want it complete so they can stop.
Yeah,
having
exactly.
this mess. So I want to talk about, because we mentioned Nicole, coming in over there, and while it was below freezing, they were shooting these people praying with water cannons, which is ridiculous. And you mentioned a few of the ways that they're torturing people, but what I would love for people to take a look at here is, forget about your interest in the pipeline. Like, let's say you want the pipeline and you think, we're going to be on oil for a long period, which I think is a valid argument you could make, that, we're going to be on, it looks like, we're not going to be off oil tomorrow. And some people could argue that this pipeline is going to be really convenient. I don't believe that. I believe all pipelines leaking is a bad idea. But let's say there are people like that. I'd still invite you to look at this from a human rights perspective, like from a perspective of, if the government is going to treat people praying like this, that are just trying to have a voice, that are just trying to be heard on a topic with their free speech, what's next? I mean, and we found in history, you guys know this already, like, you don't just have this and then it goes away. If you allow your government to treat its citizens like this, it just gets worse and worse and worse. Like, if we do not stand up to this, before you know it, like, we literally will lose pretty much all of our free speech, and the people that speak out will go to FEMA camps or wherever the hell they send us. But this angle that the government is taking is very intentional, and it's meant to terrorize us. I mean, they're becoming terrorists. They're trying to terrorize the people there with sound torture and, impact grenades and attack dogs, rubber bullets, mace. So can you guys talk about each of your own experience with, that? I know each of y'all have had the violence put on you personally, and how do we get the message to get this to stop? I mean, how many celebrities have to jump on board before people wake up to the fact that we're tasing people that are praying? And one lady will never see out of one of her eyes again. One lady's arm was completely blown up by an impact grenade. Is that what they're called? Impact
They
grenades?
call them concussion grenades.
Concussion grenades. Yeah.
I want to just say one thing on the point the way, like, even if people think the pipeline's a good thing, the militarization and the violence of the police is a whole other issue. Because for me, the reason I appreciate this fight and the people it's brought together is because it's not only those in the Native community who want to support the Standing Rock Sioux and who are trying to preserve the culture there, but then it's also those who care about the issue for environmental reasons, and it's those who paid attention because they saw the violence coming from the police. And if you look at the actions and the tools that all the police have used since August, these are all tools that were initially used in Iraq and Afghanistan that are a result of the militarization of the police that is a result of the war on terror. So all of this like connects to Standing Rock, and I've been trying to get people to really see that what we've been seeing over there is what we're going to see in every American city anytime people get organized enough that the powers that be want to push them back. They're going to come out with their Humvees and they're going to form their line like they did with us, and if you don't move quick enough, they're going to grab you or hit you or tase you or shoot you with a rubber bullet and push you back until you go till they to the area they want you to be in. It's not just because it was natives or not just because of the pipeline. I mean, this is just something that we've been seeing ramp up, and I think Standing Rock really showed maybe a section of America who hadn't been paying attention before that this is the reality, that we have militarized police. Tiny little police departments have those big Humvees, LRAD cannons, that have really no justification for it other than to fight terrorism. That's what this stuff is all used. But as we're seeing, it's also used on the domestic population. Anytime people get out of hand or just, it's become expected now as activists know that anytime you organize an action, no matter how much you stress it's going to be peaceful, there's going to be cops up there just chilling and waiting. Sometimes they'll have riot gear on for no reason. But it didn't always used to be like that even 5-6 years ago, organizing actions. Like cops wouldn't come to everything. But now it seems like every time there's any sort of action, the police are going to be out there just, maybe keeping people safe, some would say. But it's like there's a meme that goes around that it shows like the police in their heavily militarized gear, and it says like, who came here dressed for a riot? The peaceful protesters, the prayers, people praying, or the people dressed up with their gear.
Well, and it's ironic that this equipment was designed to fight terrorists, right? What are they using it for? Terrorism of their own nature on peaceful for people, water protectors. Oskar, can you share your experience of the violence there personally?
I mean, violence is violence. My personal experience makes no difference. But what people do need to get out of all of this about seeing the violence and stuff like that is that, it is very real. We are looking at things that, if we live here, let's just look at it like this. We live here, we're citizens of this place, we're citizens of this government, and many of us think that we're sitting in the greatest country in the world, or a government that cares about its people, or things that would never get to that degree, or things that we have come out of, that we think, as a nation we have socially come away from those things, right? And we can compare photographs of the violence that is happening in Standing Rock to photographs of violence that happened in the civil rights movement. People need to think about that. People need to think, what are we doing? And do you support that? By you sitting back and staying silent, you support that violence. You support that happening to you. It's not about, it's happening to those people, and as long as I'm not involved with that, I'm fine. No, it's happening to those people right now because they are standing up against what is wrong, to do what is right. And one day you will have to stand up for something that you believe is right, and it makes no matter to them, and they will do the same thing to you. Like, that is what they are trained for. They are trained to enact these. And that's the other thing, too. We have to think about something, too. Where have our police come from? In the last 50 years, what has their training become? Are police officers being trained to uphold the law and to keep peace and to serve the community? Are they being trained to terrorize their community and to take down innocent people and to use forceful tactics against citizens who cannot defend themselves in these ways? This is something we really need to take a look at. You know, um, also something else that really needs to be taken into consideration is how prevalent racism is in the police force. I mean, it's there, and people will want to say, "Oh, well, no, it's not there." It is there, and you're ignorant if you think it's not. I mean, that's just putting it bluntly. You're ignorant if you think that racism is not there. I spent 8 years in the United States Marine Corps, and I made a comment about this. I was so honored to see all these veterans who were hashtagging, remember your oath, because this was something that touched very dearly to me. Because there are people who will join the military because they want to serve their nation, they want to serve the citizen, they want to protect those who cannot protect themselves, and so they have this warrior heart in them. But then when you get into the military, you learn very quickly as a minority that the military, there's racism there. Even there's a heavy seed of racism in those departments. So it's going to be in your police departments as well. Um, when and when these veterans went up, I belong to several veterans groups on Facebook, and I shared the information of these veterans going up and stuff like that. To see some of the responses from the veterans themselves about being against this, or that they were rooting for the Morgan County Sheriff's Department, But then if you look into who that person is, you start looking at pictures of people who they've got Confederate flags and they're proud of their white pride and things like that. So, yeah, when that veteran says, "Oh, that veteran doesn't speak for me," well, you don't speak for all the other veterans. There are those who are really there in their heart, because same for police officers. There are police officers there that in their heart they want to help and they want to make a difference, right? But we also have to understand that in those circles there's very much darkness in that light. There's very much racism in those things. I don't know. I mean, I will always tell people, when the first time we went up there, we went onto this movement in Bismarck over the Veterans Bridge, right? I had never experienced this much. I don't know if it's a cultural thing or what, but indigenous people to Native American, First Nations people, there's always been a respect, and my entire spirit dropped when I heard somebody shout out of their truck passing by this derogatory comment towards the First Nation people, the Sioux, that were there. And that was a reality that I was floored by. I was like, wow, that person really just said that.
Yeah. Like how do you have racism towards indigenous people? Like, we came here, we took their land, we raped their women, we killed their children, and it's like, oh yeah, fuck them. Like, how does that even exist? Like, I just don't get that. Like, it's so insane.
And it's there, and people don't realize that it's there. I mean, I didn't realize that it was there. In the South, we experience racism on another level. But there, and people go, "Oh yeah, those are very much red states," and I go, "I had no idea." You know, um, for us as people, I think that this also is Standing Rock. Yes, it is environmental, and it is it is an indigenous thing, but it also, people need to wake up that this is the reality of the world. The way they're treating the people there is the way that they will treat all people.
Yeah, and I think as a conscious movement, it's important that we include the military and the police in what we're sharing. Like, if people have those folks in their family or in their friends, like, let's share this information with them first. And I think it's important for anyone in the military or police to take personal accountability for what they do. This whole "I was following orders" thing is a dangerous mindset that is causing global murder and genocide because, well, I was just following orders. But like, I saw a TED Talk one time about who's actually accountable. Is it the guy that makes the order, or is it the person that commits the murder? I mean, and this guy argued that it's the person that commits the murder. Yeah, this other person told you to do this, so what? You did it. Like, you are responsible. You did it. This whole "I was following orders" thing, I think, is a dangerous it's a dangerous thing, and I know there's a lot of people that are going to say, well, you got to have some kind of order, you got to have some kind of government, but not like that. Not when one person's telling another person to murder a bunch of innocent people and they just do it because it's following orders.
In all things like that, you will have people of conscious mind who will be able to say, this, this just is not right.
There's been a lot of police that have quit, hasn't there? I've heard numbers anywhere from 2 to 30 police have
I
quit.
definitely heard a few reports of cops quitting or even turning their badges.
Yeah, just saying this isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yay! So, Derrick, you want to tell us about how you got tased trying to defend a horse? I saw the video. It's pretty crazy.
Sure. So, we were just Oskar, myself, and several other people from Houston, along with hundreds of other people, were on one of the front lines on October 27th, which is the first one of several days of violence towards the water protectors, but it was the day that the day of many fires, the day of the raid, when they first shut down the frontline treaty camp. It has several different names, 1851 camp, but it was one of the front lines that was closest to the construction of the pipeline, and it was retaken by the Sioux, basically saying under the 1851 Laramie Treaty, we have ownership of this, so we're going to do our own form of eminent domain and take the land back. And the police had come for several days warning that they were going to come and forcefully remove everybody eventually, and so when that happened, we were all out there just trying to do what we can. I was running around with my camera and trying to talk to the cops, saying like, hey, you don't have to do this. People were telling them they love the cops, people were telling them to make do something your family can be proud of type of thing. So we were, there was also other people yelling angrily at the cops, but there was plenty of people trying to do outreach, and there's a lot of chaos. They had their L-Ride sound cannon. They all had different kinds of riot gear. They had big mace cannons, they had batons, tasers, rubber bullets, all kinds of stuff. And they just kept advancing and grabbing people. You look around and you just see like chaos in every direction. Sound going off, people getting yelled at or grabbed. So I was getting as close as I could and trying to document everything that was happening. And at one point, one of the cops tried to grab me, I guess just because I got too close, and I got away from him. And then a couple minutes after that, somebody's like, "Hey, film this horse." This is one of the native horse riders that rode up really close to the front line, and he was standing there, and you see like 5 cops just point their tasers at the horse. So me and another guy just started yelling. I'm like, don't fucking tase that horse. And just, I don't know, I think I did probably what anyone would have done, naturally defend a life that seemed to be threatened right in front of me.
Yeah, and helpless. The horse didn't have any defenses.
I don't really care about
Horse didn't
if
make the
it's
decision to be there.
animal or human or otherwise. Like if I'm in a position to help defend a life, then that's what I'm going to do. And that's just kind of, my instincts took over, so I just started yelling at the cops, and I yelled to them, I'm with the media, I'm documenting, don't shoot me. And right after that, initially I thought it was tased at first, but upon reviewing the video and slowing it down, there's a cop that you can see in the video. He shoots a beanbag round, and it didn't hit me because I didn't have any bruises on me or anything, and he shot pretty close. But I think he hit my camera because on the video everything gets all blurry, which is it's funny because it kind of matches the chaos of the situation unfolding. But he shoots this beanbag round, and I think that gunshot going off is what caused everybody to start freaking out, And so as I turned to run away from him, I just felt like a shot go up me, and I felt my knees buckle and tighten, and I fell down. I had my camera in one hand and just threw my hand up, just like, hoping that somebody was going to grab me. People running in all directions. And a friend of ours who was out there, Gabby, she grabbed me by the hand with another guy, and they just kind of pulled me up and came to, and then just stayed there on the front line. After that, it was just like,
The beanbag hit you here again?
No, it was 4 tasers.
So taser did hit you initially.
The beanbag went off first.
Okay,
I think it probably hit my camera, or it may have just completely missed me. Either way, that's what caused all the chaos to ensue, because everybody hears, starts running in different directions. And in the video, you can see when the beanbag round goes off, the cops are still pointing their tasers at the horse. So I think right after that, they turned, and because I had 4 different, 2 each little prongs from where they got me. So, but I got up. I was able to get up and just continue filming, and then my camera died shortly after that. But there was another police officer who, I was trying to go up and talk to him, and I was pretty shook up after that. So I was just yelling at them like, is this what you guys did to me? Is this what you want to do? Like trying to confront them with their own actions, really. And then one of the officers that kept coming at me, he had the big mace can. I had goggles on, I had my face mostly covered, and I was trying to talk to him, and I was like, why are you doing this, brother? Or whatever. I was saying something to him and called him brother, and he was like, I'm not your fucking brother, and just like pushed me back. And that, that definitely was like a sting, situation to feel that. And then afterwards, the dude pepper sprayed me, but I didn't end up getting out on camera. I didn't get my eyes, it got like across my hand here, across my lower back, but it stings a little bit no matter where you get it on your skin. And then we just stayed up there as long as we could until basically it was like there's nothing else we can do here, and pushed us all the way back to like let's go back to camp. It was a very defeating feeling, frustrating feeling to just watch just as they push you and push you and push you until you can keep fighting. They're gonna grab you and arrest you. I mean, it's not gonna serve any purpose at that point.
And they're geared up for full on riot, and you guys have no weapons.
And it's hard for people. I mean, you're faced with a lot of heavy decisions. When the movement is led by peace and by prayer, there's a lot of internal struggle because we get angry when we're getting beat on, and we want to fight back, and so. People say, oh, well, they're being violent and stuff like that. No one there is being violent. No one there is hitting police officers. No one there is, directly causing any type of assault on any of the law enforcement there. Everybody there is praying. Now, are people picking up gas canisters that get shot into crowds and throwing them back? Yes. People are naturally defending themselves in the most peaceful ways possible. Were they setting up barricades and setting them on fire and things like that? Yes, they were. Why? Because think about it. What would you do if you have camp full of women and children, and this is how they're treating peaceful protesters out here? How are they going to treat the people over here? Yeah, people are doing anything that they need to defend those who cannot be defended.
It's just human instinct.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous to equate that with violence. That's not violence. Violence would be protesters who are taking 2x4s or batons or spray cans and things like that and assaulting the law enforcement officers. They're just praying. They're just singing. They're just they're just loving. And there's several of them that are asking, why are you doing this to me? And people need to hear that. People saying, why are you doing this to me, brother? And somebody to say, I'm not your brother, that already tells you the mentality that is there. A mentality of a peaceful people who, hey, we just want us all to live together, and one to say, no, we're separate. You're not like me. I'm not like you. That's a horrible place to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the critical part of the movement is to keep the focus on all we want is a voice here, even if you don't agree with us. Like we just want our voice, and that's supposedly our right in America. But this is showing that maybe we don't have as much freedom as we thought we had. Or like a lot of people thought we had. I think you probably know that we don't have as much freedom as we thought because you've been, pushing against the system for so long. You've seen what they do when you push against it. And I think, to some degree, maybe on different topics, but the government at some level, I think, is actually killing a lot of people that, I mean, maybe it's not the government, but someone is killing people that keep coming up with cancer cures. Someone is like all these different controversies around different politicians, people are investigating and they end up murdered, suicides, like heart attacks, like over and over again. So like the government and the police, I think, have been compromised, And it's like, well, what do you do when you live in a country when your police force and your government have been compromised all the way up, to all the way up to the top? You kind of have to change your aspects. You kind of have to change your modus operandi when things have been compromised. Like it's not, you can't just go tell the police, hey, there's a bunch of people that are trying to pray over this land and there's, people attacking them. Please protect them because they're the ones attacking them. So you can't go tell the police to please do your job and protect these people because they're the ones that are freaking, they're the ones that we need protection from. So I mean, other than, I get it, share the word, share the message, get out there, inform people. But other than that, Derek, what can we do about this? Like, how do we reverse this trend? Because it sure looks like we're going more and more towards a military state if we're not there already.
Well, I think that's an awesome question because it's easy to talk and focus on the problems that we have, and you can talk about those all night, but not so many people are looking or focusing on solutions, and obviously spreading awareness is a valuable one. But I do think that there are some concepts that can really help us strengthen our communities and our communal bonds at a time that's probably more important than ever because the country seems to become increasingly divided, and I anticipate that that's going to be going on for the next several years. It just seems to be the game plan for those who are trying to maneuver from behind the scenes. So I think that presents an opportunity for those of us who are wanting to focus on solutions and wanting to focus on building community to do that now. And I've been personally trying to promote a concept, an idea that I call freedom cells. I got the name from a friend of mine in Austin, an activist out there. And we built a website to promote the concept, freedomcells.org. It's basically, it looks sort of like a social network, but it's not geared to be a social network. It's meant to be a platform that allows you to meet people within close proximity to you in order to build real-world community projects. And the idea of freedom cells is basically, it's based on some research that has shown that humans work best in groups of 8, 9 to 10 people. 8 kind of ideal. After that, like too little people, you're not very effective. Too many people, you become very ineffective. And so 8 is an ideal number. Try to bring people together. Imagine this group of 8 could share skills, so everybody could learn CPR. Everybody could have 3 months worth of backup supply of food, encrypted form of communication, some form of self-defense, firearms or otherwise. Also use that to share knowledge, so everybody could learn what they want about permaculture and teach it to the group. Your freedom cell could go build a garden one day. You could use it in so many different ways, this concept, and also creating each person within that, turning around and creating other freedom cells directly in their community. Then you have 8 groups of 8 to 10 people spread around Houston. And we're really just trying to facilitate the growth of that. Me and a few other people have been promoting this, and I've been talking about it now for a year and putting out videos increasingly. And every time I promoted the idea, people respond well to it, and I've been contacted by people all around the world who say, we call it this, and we're doing these projects with it. So I do think that there's a need for coming together, and again, especially in light of like the election and just a lot of divisive topics that seem to be out there. The system plays on our on our division, and if we're going to see, especially because there seems to be an increasing focus on like the independent media through this like fake news type stuff. We saw a lot of misinformed people because of the pipeline, because of the lack of reporting or just crappy reporting coming from the corporate media. So to me, when you have an increased focus on not only the domestic population through the militarization of the police, an increased focus on independent media as propaganda or fake news, is what the system's calling it, that seems like, okay, this is a hell of a time where we need to strengthen our communal bonds. So I've been trying to use the concept of freedom cells and a few other apps that exist out there that are decentralized, that allow people to form relationships and do business together without the need for government or any other third party. And that's kind of my focus right now. I think that we're in a really crucial moment where we need to figure out if we're going to come together and work together, or we're going to allow ourselves to be divided. And I think some people will continue to be propagandized and by the party line, so to speak, and just continue to support these unsustainable systems. Government, corporate power, oil, whatever you want to look at. I think we need a real reworking of a lot of these systems, and hopefully, whether it's freedom cells or some other similar concept, people start to recognize that we're in a place where we really need to come together. If we don't do that, there's not very much hope in us changing much of anything.
Yeah, indeed. And there happens to be 8 people here tonight, so we have a freedom cell.
There you go.
Yeah. So, and I agree. I think my ideal going forward in the future is to have a big enough piece of property, which we have a few different people in our community here that have properties that we can merge onto, but that we can kind of be self-contained. For the most part, we grow our own fruit and vegetables. We have our own little kind of, I don't even want to say government, but we have our own rules, our own way of living. And luckily for us, the Constitution was written to protect people that want to do that. The problem is they're over and over again putting into law and legislation rules that take that away, like the rule that you can't collect rainwater, which is one of the most ridiculous things ever in the world. and that you can't be off the grid. Like there's people getting in trouble because they're getting on solar panels when I'm getting off the grid, and that's actually against the law in some places. Which, we've got to look at how can we coexist. Like what I want for myself is to be able to coexist in this country with my freedom and choose to, be an activist about certain topics. But if I choose not to, I can be in peace in my own space without being hassled for things like jaywalking, like just ridiculous laws that they've created, and have a community where our space, that we leave, to go to a concert, or we'll leave to go, into the city or whatever. But for the most part, we stay on our property. We, obey the big laws, and we kind of live in our own little bubble. That's kind of my envision. Is that kind of how y'all see it in terms of how we can? Because I know it's a long question. I think ultimately our government is starting to crumble, and we could either be in the chaos of that crumble, or we could create our own system where it crumbles around us, and it really doesn't affect us that much, other than we kind of posting about it or sharing what the replacement to the crumbling government is.
I definitely feel like that's my long-term vision and goal is definitely to focus on the creation and the building of something something that serves the people and serves this planet and serves life here, because whether we're talking about corporate or state power, they're very unsustainable, and all the steps that they're taking, the growth of the military and expansion of empire around the world, are all the signs that every empire that has collapsed has taken before. So we could just see through history that that's the direction that they're headed. And we could either, you mentioned like the FEMA thing, or we can either, the thing I like to tell people is we can either sit around and wait for this unsustainable system to collapse under its own weight, and then take our chances with like looting and rioting in the streets to try to survive, right? Or when they say, hey, come down to this FEMA shelter, we have food for your family, you can go try it out. Or we can be the people who've thought ahead, and try to start thinking, as Oskar was talking about earlier, like generational change, and thinking not just, the seventh generation, not just thinking about what's going to feel good now or sustain us and maintain our lives now, but what's going to allow us to thrive and flourish in the future. And to me, that's why the political solutions tend to be a lie, especially this idea of like voting for president, because they try to play on people's desire for quick and fast change, and they're like, just vote for me or just vote for this person, and they'll promise you all these things, and they're not going to be able to accomplish any of them. But if they play on that desire where we want change, there's good people who want change, and so they sort of buy into that concept, because it's hard to sell them on, okay, well, I want you to help change things. It's going to involve a lot of personal, individual work. It's going to involve a lot of changing your community and your time, and it's not an easy thing to do. But we can either say, okay, well, it's too busy, the task is too great, so I'll do nothing, or I'll just keep trying these solutions that have shown time and time again they don't provide anything of value. Or we can say, you know what, I'm going to actually dedicate my time as much as possible, which looks different for everyone, and our tactics look different as well, but towards changing and supporting systems that do serve us. And I don't think that's going to be found in the mainstream system we have now. It's going to be found by people who either are building community options, community alternatives, and maybe at the local level, we even see corruption at the local city government. But there is possibly the best opportunity to change. If there's a chance to change anything within the system, like it's on a local level, like maybe even like school board type level, where you can really have an effect in your direct community.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Ron Paulers jumped on the Bernie Sanders wagon. I think those were more the uneducated in terms of, because the thing is, if you really believed in what Ron Paul said, you would want nothing to do with Bernie Sanders. No offense to the burners out there. Like some people believe, and there's nothing wrong with believing we need our government to fix everything, but my belief is that everything the government's ever put their fingers into have gotten tainted and jacked up, and to look to them to answer our problems, like feeding poor people and healthcare, all that. Like the government's just going to screw it up. Like why do we want them involved in more stuff? Like let's come up with solutions. Yeah, let's have free healthcare, but let's do it. Let's us do it. Let's not do it with the government. And I know that's some people are going to say, oh yeah, that's easy. It's not easy, but it's possible. And what I would love to see is some networks of organizations that are supporting people and helping people to go get help from a health perspective, but not necessarily Western medicine. Maybe there'll be some Western medicine doctors as well, but if we can get just from the healthcare perspective, can we get a good synergy of people helping people and people people utilizing services like Oskar provides, I know you've helped a lot of people that can't afford it. I've helped a lot of people that can't afford it. Like that kind of movement to, kind of show up with a new way of thinking instead of looking for our government to fix stuff. Because we tried that.
I agree with a lot of what Derrick is saying about community, because even if you look at Standing Rock, one of the things that Standing Rock proves is that when communities come together, things happen. Standing Rock was not a camp, it was a community, it was a community of people. There was a way there were people who were on the same mindset. Here in Houston, people who never knew each other or would probably never even come in to cross each other's paths have crossed each other's paths because of this thing, and it has developed a community. In fact, it has strengthened communities. It has brought so many people together. But that's what we need. And when those communities come together, they are able to put those pressures on their local governments and begin to make changes there. I think that's another place where we as a people need to wake up. We are now conditioned that, hey, these people who make the laws and who are in government positions rule over us, when it was never that way. We were the people and they worked for us. They were supposed to be servants to us, and now they're our masters. But we still have the power, and we realize that when we get together as communities and go, you're an elected official, we're not standing for that shit. This is what we say as the people. Now put it into play. How else did we gain our civil rights in the 50s and the 60s? By communities coming together and saying, this is not right. By causing civil disobedience. By saying, no, you are saying to me, say for example, feeding the homeless, you are telling me that I cannot feed the homeless, that I cannot feed somebody that is hungry. I'm sorry. But even though you wrote that as a law, I must defy that, because that's not right. And you can't do that to me. You don't have that authority to.
Yeah.
That's what we have to say as a people, to tell the government, you don't have that authority. I'm sorry, you don't.
Well, and the thing is, like, let's say the 8 of us here, right, decide to start a community. Well, we would, theoretically, we would come up with a group of rules that we would all agree to. If you don't agree to them, you don't stay there. That's fine. Like, this isn't your community. Every community is going to have different rules, and they're going to have, and you can debate them and whatever. New people coming into the community after those rules were made, they're going to say, yes, I agree to these rules and I want to stay, or no, I want to, this isn't my thing, whatever. Either one's right. I didn't get that opportunity with this government. I was never asked, hey, do you agree to go 35 miles per hour because this sign says so? Do you agree to get what's called a driver's license, even though Texas state law says that drivers are people that are paid to drive and passengers are people that pay people to drive? Everyone else is a traveler. You don't need a driver's license. That's Texas state law. But if I want to not have a driver's license, I have to go fight this government of mine and go to court. And I have a buddy that's done it 3 times, no driver's license. He's beat it every time because it's Texas state law. You don't need it. But like, it's easy little things like that. Like, I didn't agree to that. And I think one day we're going to look back on it like, wow, I can't believe people didn't even realize they were enslaved when they were enslaved. And when you're born into a government that has all these rules you didn't agree to, that's slavery.
Even to the point of the registration and inspection of your vehicle in Texas. You don't have to have it. But in order to exercise that right, you will have to fight the state of Texas in court in order for them to say, he doesn't have to have a registration sticker. That's ridiculous.
That's the points you're bringing, both you guys are bringing up, are just, to me, it's like, it's just, it's the questions that people need to ask on a deeper level. Ask themselves the question of, for one, what is the proper role of government? And, this idea of a social contract, like you're saying, that we're born into this world and expected of certain things of us, whether or not we agree to them or not. And you mentioned Ron Paul. Before Ron Paul left Congress, he actually gave a speech where he was talking about how he thought that he would support the right of every person to be able to opt out of society. He came with the idea, I think it should just be, you just have the option, you don't have to pay anything. But he said, maybe every American citizen who wanted to opt out could pay $10,000, and then you're no longer bound by like the U.S. government. You still have to, of course, go by basic laws, but you wouldn't have to pay taxes. And there's a way to figure that idea out. And I generally support that people should have the freedom to join, or like we're a part of the larger community of the United United States that exist in this land just by being here, right? But then we're also a part of Houston, and we're part of communities like Houston and Texas and all that. But they should always be voluntary, And if we're part of any institution, whether that's taxation or any other thing, if we don't voluntarily give our money or choose to be there, then it can't be said to be legitimate. You know what I mean? They literally have like a gun to your head because if you don't agree to play by those rules that you were born into, whether you agree to or not, then there's going to be consequences, whether that means putting you in a cage or some sort of violence against you. So if any institution, government or otherwise, or individual has to hold you there under the threat of force, then their authority isn't legitimate. If I kept you here with a gun to your head and said, Joe, you owe me money every month out of whatever you make, and if not, then I'm going to have my goons come attack you. That's all government is, except for on a larger level. They have a monopoly of a geographic area that has been sort of just passed down, and most people recognize it as legitimate because those same people are the ones who create the education system that legitimizes their authority. They also have the militarized police, as we said, and the army. So maybe these type of issues can get people to think on a deeper level, again, what is the role of government? Do I believe I owe these institutions? Not because we don't care about helping our community, because there are so many other ways that we've all sort of thrown out some loose ideas, but if it came down to it, people aren't just going to sit around and do nothing. We're going to figure out how to do shit. We're going to go, okay, well, government's gone, or this, federal government's gone, or whatever. How are we going to take care of ourselves now? And we would form the institutions, but I think that the goal here should be recognize the opportunity that has presented itself to create powerful community institutions, not wait for the moment to arise, but be proactive rather than reactive, which is what I think we've been for so long, just letting this other side dictate where the battlefield's at.
Yeah.
We need to just create and step out of playing their game, compete with them rather than trying to play with the tools they are trying to give us.
Yeah, I like that. And different shows, so we'll kind of move back to Standing Rock a little bit. But there's some interesting things to look at in terms of divorcing yourself from your Social Security number. Like that's sort of one of the ways they legally hold on to us is through our Social Security number. And if you just divorce yourself from that, you can get rid of all your debt. Like that's how they're enslaving us, basically.
Joseph, all of the things we talked about tonight reflect on Standing Rock.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's all related. I just meant I don't want to get into the Social Security thing.
Shows all of those things. They show America this. If America is truly watching, Standing Rock alone can show you this. One, it shows us who controls the media and how powerful they are. The other thing they show us is how deep the companies go into the pockets of politicians. Americans need to look into what are their politicians invested in.
Trump is invested in the pipeline, by the way, if y'all didn't know.
The financial institutions. They're not just a place where we put our money and it sits safely there. This also shows Americans that the financial institutions are invested in things deeper than you think. And not just financial institutions in the United States, but financial institutions outside of the United States. The other thing that Standing Rock shows America is that we have the ability and the financial means as a people to move mountains. Millions of dollars came from the pockets of the people and were invested into Standing Rock for a cause. People need to understand they have a power there with their money the same way that those corporations have power with the politicians out of the money out of their pocket. We as a people have a power with the money in our pocket. It may not be a lot, but hey, guess what? We're millions of people with a little that can come up with millions of dollars.
Yeah. And on that topic, I just want to list off some of the banks. This isn't even all of the banks, but some of the, especially the banks I found that were in the States, that we would love for you to boycott and pull your money out. But I don't say just pull your money out. Go to the bank and tell them why you're pulling your money out. It's more powerful movement when we actually say, hey, or even give them an ultimatum. Say, I'm going to pull my money out in 1 week if you don't change this policy. And come in a week. Hey, did you change it? No. You didn't change it for me? So these are some banks that are involved in the funding of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Wells Fargo, SunTrust, Citibank, ING Bank, BBVA, DNB Capital, Royal Bank of Scotland, Citizens Bank, Comerica Bank, US Bank, JP Morgan Chase, of course, Bank America, of course, Compass Bank, Royal Bank of Canada, Gordon Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and Origin Bank. And I don't remember what country it was, but some country had their national bank was one of these, and it might have been Scotland, but there was, I think it was Denmark or something.
Yeah, I think so.
Denmark. But there was so much, support for Standing Rock that the bank, I don't know if they actually did pull out, but they were seriously considered pulling their funding from the project because of the response. And, unfortunately our on-the-ground troops are not to that level in the States where we can make that kind of an impact, but maybe we'll get there. I see a lot of posting about Standing Rock, but I don't see that much posting about, hey, get out of these banks, go find yourself a credit union or something. And it's a bigger deal. I mean, the banking institutions, you guys, you can look up, if you really don't know, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers are the federal banks of all but 3 countries. And I forget the 3 countries. Cuba's one of them, I believe. Syria and Libya, is that it? Is that the 3? At any rate, they've been doing some very, very shady stuff to control the money of the entire world, and we can affect that by pulling our money out of these banks. I mean, Thomas Jefferson tried to warn us that if we let the banks take over the printing of our money, it would ruin our country, and if you don't realize it has, look into the Federal Reserve, and again, different show, but 6 stuff. I mean, when you let private bankers print money for no good reason, it's just sick. But let's get back to Standing Rock a little bit. I want to bring a couple people on. Are you down?
Are you asking Rosie?
I'm asking both of y'all. She already said yes.
I'll say something.
Okay, cool. You want to scoot over just a little bit, Oskar? We'll get kind of tight. Derrick, you want to sit next to me? Yeah, let's put y'all 2 right here. I think we can all fit. We'll just stay to ourselves. Okay, cool. Yeah, just let me know when you need to hit the road and get chatting. We probably won't.
Does anybody want any water or juice or anything?
I'll take some juice.
Okay.
Cool. So this is Rosie Soto.
Hi.
And Travis, they've both recently been to Standing Rock within the last month. I think you were there about a month ago, Rosie, and Travis got back.
6 weeks ago.
Okay, Travis got back, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, yeah.
How about you, start, Rosie? You want to tell us a little bit about your story there? You fed a lot of people, and what did you experience there?
Sure. Hi, my name is Rosie. So I'm a local chef here in Houston, Texas, and I went up to Standing Rock because I had a calling to go. We were at a camping event, and I was speaking to my friend Oskar here, and I just felt it in my heart that I needed to go to Standing Rock, so I went. It was a very moving experience. I got up there, and I first helped set up our kitchen for our campsite for the people that I traveled up with, and then I almost immediately went down to the kitchen, and I had contacted some people there at the Sacred Stone Camp previously in order to be able to go in there and relieve the people that were already cooking on a day-to-day basis, and I knew were tired, so I asked permission to be able to go in there and create a team and help put things into order and cook for them. And it was beautiful. I had access to all these different meats that I had never cooked with before. I cooked yak and elk and buffalo, even fish at one point that I made for some people. So there was a lot of camaraderie there between the people that were there already working in the kitchen, and at the same time there was also a lack of sufficient help. The people that were there working in the kitchen were really spread thin. They were getting very little sleep, very little rest, because they were literally cooking one meal, and as that one was being tidied up and dishes washed and pots cleaned, they were already prepping for the next meal. So it was very difficult it's been very difficult for these people because they're working really, really hard. So for those of you that are interested in going there, we talk about the people that go up there to help at the camp and to help on the front lines and to help. Everybody has a different calling. We can't tell you where to go and volunteer. We can't tell you what it is that you need to do. That has to come from your heart. It has to come from your spirit. Spirit will speak to you and tell you where you need to be. But I encourage those of you that have any interest at all in cooking to go and help in the kitchen. These people need a lot of help. It's an incredible job to prep, and cook and serve meals for hundreds of people. They need a lot of help. So if you can get out there and do your thing, it's greatly appreciated.
In terms of, you'll hear often that they have plenty of supplies, especially like jackets. I think they have plenty of. But can all of y'all, can we just kind of briefly talk about what is still needed there? I've heard propane recently. I've heard, what are the other things I've heard lately? Dry socks. I've even heard is still a need out there. Food, not so much, right? Or is coffee and tobacco? I think are two other things that they're always kind of.
If I may start, and then anybody else can interject from there on. I keep in touch still with a friend that we made while we were up there. He goes by Dougie, and he is a person that is on the front lines on a day-to-day basis, and then works as security for the camp at night. And I've been communicating pretty regularly with him, and the one thing that the list that he continuously gives me over and over is rice and beans and meat and firewood. I also have talked to other people that have been back and forth, and propane and firewood always come up. They also need winter hardy tent structures. So the teepees are good if you're able to put like some type of a heating element, inside like a little, wooden stove. But if you don't have that, they're not sufficiently winter hardy. So we're talking, tents that have a special backing on the back of the fabric that help, resist moisture from the snow and from the ice. That would help a lot. Supposedly, recently there's been an issue with some UPS deliveries that were supposed to. A medic had ordered several big, large tents where they would be able to do triage and treatment of patients that were coming from the front lines that were being affected. And so, from what we've heard, UPS has held the delivery first of all, and then when they tried to research, they told the people that they were being delivered to at Standing Rock that they were being held and they could go pick them up. And then when they get there, they had no idea where they were. And supposedly some anonymous person signed for them, and they have no idea where the tents have gone. And each one of these tents is worth thousands of dollars. So in my conversations also that I've had with other people that have been at Standing Rock, they have said that there is a really big need for fresh produce. They're not receiving enough fresh produce. So, it's a lot of canned goods, dry rice, dry beans, and of course, meat when it does get delivered. But they need fresh produce, and I can vouch for that. You need the vitamins and, the fresh fiber that is in fresh fruits and vegetables. So, highly encourage people to send nuts too, nuts, seeds, alternative grains. Would be good.
Cool. Who else has something to share about what's needed?
Well, I don't disagree with Rosie on the need for produce. I will say that just, as of last week when I was there was greens going bad. There was like so much squash that we didn't know what to do with. There was in the personal kitchen, the camp that we had, and in the Sacred Stone camp, and then on Machete, like some of the kitchens seemed to have, some areas had an abundance of maybe certain types of produce, but I think that like the one thing, like she was saying, firewood is constantly like that's always going to be a need. We were in the teepee and we were lucky enough to have a wood stove to keep us warm, but in the last couple of days we were there, I know that there was starting to become some questions about starting to ration out firewood on the Sacred Stone side. So, and with it getting as cold as it was, it's kind of like you're getting down in wood, and there's deliveries come and go, but they're not always consistent. So that's definitely, I think, going to be a need throughout the winter is firewood.
No, I mean, as far as donations go, I will always say donate your funds directly to the camps and allow, because the truth is that supplies they will change from day to day.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
just to
money is
whatever
always
whatever their need is. I mean, there are a few good sites out there that you can donate to that where the fund now that's what I would tell people. Don't donate to groups or anything like that. Donate to the camps, the GoFundMe accounts that are directly set up by the camps or the camps. They've got good people who know what they're doing, who know what the needs are. They will spend the money on the camps. We've met these people, It's not people who are spending the money on themselves, which that's always someone's biggest fear when they're donating something, is how's my money getting used? These people are out there living in teepees, and they're not living living in extravagant means at all. They're servants to their community and their people. So please donate to the camps if you don't know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to donate to Derrick, by the way, he's on Patreon, Patreon. And that wouldn't be specifically for Standing Rock because Derrick reports on a ton of issues, but Standing Rock is definitely a major one he's been reporting on lately. But that would support him in all of his different reporting. And can you give us real quick a rundown of? I know it's Mint Press. I'll let you name them all.
People I work for.
Yeah.
Well, I have a show on Mondays on KPFT 90.1 KPFT. Mondays 3 to 5.
In Houston.
Freethinker Radio. And then I help out on the local news sometimes whenever they call me for reports. But I write for mintpressnews.com, which is based in Minnesota, and theantimedia.org, and then also activistpost.com.
Very cool. Anything we missed on supplies?
On supplies, no. The most important things are firewood and propane and capable individuals.
Capable individuals.
Yeah, the biggest message that I got and that many others received was just to be prepared, and everyone wants to know what to be prepared for. Be prepared for Standing Rock, be prepared for this, the other pipeline, or at home. But the simplest thing I can say is just be prepared to be whoever you are and bring whatever it is that you bring to the table, and in any situation or environment or any given time, and just be prepared to be you. And that's it. There's nothing much more I can.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to go there personally, I mean, don't count on their jackets fitting you and all that. Bring your gear. You're walking into a blizzard, literally.
Yeah, it's a frozen war zone.
Don't go there and bring more problem to the party by not being prepared for the cold and for the wind and for all these different things. Do you want to share about your experience there? Like what your takeaways were? What any insights you got from going there?
There's not a lot of things that I can say that a lot of people haven't said already. If you're called to be there, then I wouldn't stop you. I would say go. If you're not called, absolutely do not go. There's no reason for you to be there. If you don't understand something, don't participate. Gain as much clarity as you can on the situation so that you develop an understanding of how to express your intentions through right action. So yeah, no, it was something. It was what I experienced was a chaotic beauty. I was there for November 20th. I was there for many hours of the water cannons and the bullets and the peaceful protectors and the incitement from our militarized police force. But I was also there for November 24th, I believe, for a large peaceful movement gathering prayer circle that was really amazing to be a part of, and very beautiful and very intentional and very peaceful. So you got full spectrum of the rainbow going on. Yeah, that's about it.
Rosie, without giving her name, unless you've gotten her permission to share the story, can you share the story of the gal who got, pepper sprayed and then couldn't sleep for weeks after? I mean, it's kind of
well,
a
I can't
story.
give her name because
Yeah.
she didn't agree for me to give her name. But so a friend of ours that traveled with us was amongst the group that were on the front lines when they were pepper sprayed, maced, whatever terminology you want to use. And so the issue now is that since that happened, she has had repeated night after night difficulty sleeping at night. Generally, she's okay all day within her breathing. not having any problems or anything. But as soon as the sun starts to set, she starts going into tired mode. In other words, her body starts to slow down because she's tired. She'll start coughing, and it's incessant coughing all night long until she finally just passes out from exhaustion and at about 5 o'clock in the morning. And so she's getting an average between 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night, and it's wearing her down. I mean, she's a small, frail person as it is, and well, I shouldn't say frail. Sorry, I'll take that back. Cancel.
Small.
Small, and so she's having an issue. Getting good rest because she's not able to just lay down and follow the normal body process of resting because she's constantly sitting up and coughing.
Yeah.
Every night.
Yeah, I brought that up because I want to show people like there's lasting effects that people are having from this. I mean, like I already mentioned earlier, one lady will never have her eye back. One lady may not have use of her arm back yet. We don't know that. And how many people are going to have PTSD from this? I mean, you can't go to a battlefield and get shot at, literally, and possibly tased and all this other stuff without getting some form of PTSD. And it's like, this is our government giving us PTSD in our own homeland. This is our taxpayer money going towards, terrorizing water protectors. And by the way, the point that we didn't bring up yet is they've been terrorizing water protectors because they're protecting the law, right? So, like the law says you can't be here, you can't protest here, whatever. Well, now the law has said that they're putting a halt to it, and it looks like, Energy Partners is going to continue on. So, shouldn't we be able to call onto our police force and say, hey, these guys are now breaking the law, you need to go stop them? I mean, you have plenty of police in place around here, obviously. Well, here's something to go police. These people are breaking the law. They were told to stop this pipeline, and they have not. So I think that could be a common thread of when we share this information. Like, let's get the police to go stop what's actually illegal. Okay, do any of y'all have any questions for our beautiful panel of people that have made it up to Standing Rock?
Did you enjoy the trip up and back? Did you enjoy your trip?
Yes, most definitely.
I enjoyed the trip up and back because they're laughing. It allowed me to spend time with people that I love and to get to know new people that I had not met. It allowed me to go through certain challenges that I needed to in order to face other challenges. I enjoyed the trip up there because the world outside of the city is so much more beautiful, and there's, just the land, the earth, how she looks, her hills and her rivers and all of those things. You can't not enjoy those things. In fact, those are things that keep us reminded of why exactly we are fighting. So that we can have those beautiful things. But yeah, it was a wonderful trip.
We're going to close it down here. Any other closing comments? Any other questions from our tribe over here? Any other closing comments on where do we go from here?
To the future.
Yeah, I just say, don't forget about the big picture. Now is a great time to make a choice as to how you want to live and participate, in this life and on this planet.
Yeah, indeed. And I'll close by saying these oil companies are just part of a bigger collaboration. And the bigger collaboration has some people involved from the banker side of things. There's the lobbyists for all the different, oil and pharma, and you could go through all these different things. But there is a ruling class, and most of us think it's like, or a lot of people think in the United States that the ruling class is the politicians and the people in the Senate. That's not the ruling class. Those are the pawns. Those are the puppets. The ruling class is actually the bankers and the people that are actually pulling the strings. And until we figure out, we already know who these people are, but until we figure out a way to share with people what's actually going on right now, and I know this whole, Illuminati or a cult or whatever you want to call it, can be ridiculed. But if you do your own research and find out who's actually running the show, that's the first step to stopping it. How are you going to free yourself from slavery when you don't know who your captors are? Like, you don't even know who's enslaving you. Like they say, the victors write the history books. We don't even know who the victors are right now.
Maybe the
because
question
they don't
is
want
not.
that kind of fame.
Maybe the question is not who's running the show, but who's running your show.
That's a good point.
Your individual show.
That's a good point. But I mean, if you live in the United States, a lot of what you can and cannot do is determined by this group, and until we identify them and know what kind of rules they have on us, we can't, escape from those rules and escape from the tyranny that they're putting upon us. I mean, it's criminal. I mean, in a different show again, but pedophile rings, occult worship, Satanist sacrifice, like all this sounds crazy. This is the ruling class. This is what they're doing right now, and it's so crazy that most people won't even look at it. But I know most of us here have taken a look, and it's scary shit. I mean, it's not a fun place, and without raising awareness to it, we have no chance of walking out of it one day. So I'm glad we're doing things like this to raise awareness, and I bless each of you for sharing your story. I really appreciate
Remember
it.
to
And
stay
for everyone that
heart-centered.
joined us over here. Any other final questions? Are we good?
I can't have one.
Okay, we have one more question. We'll wrap it up.
So, like, when you were there, because I keep reading stories, too, about there's a lot of people showing up and kind of treating it as, like, it's like a festival, like, kind of like Burning Man festival or kind of like that. Like, how much did you actually see? And, like, how much of these stories are actually true? Like, do you think that people are just kind of, like, putting it out there, like, don't come up here kind of stuff? Or, like, did you see a lot of that while you were there, people who weren't taking it seriously?
I think there's definitely that element of it, for sure. It's not, I wouldn't say it's maybe some people in the media choose to focus on that like as a way to discourage people, but there's also truth to it, for sure.
Maybe we should just play a music
Yeah,
festival out there.
I think it's a touchy subject because I didn't run into drunks. I didn't run into any parties. I didn't run into any of those scenes. But they also want people to people are living there, and so actual like like a regular good time, like sitting around the fire, telling jokes, having laughs, playing the guitar. That's why I feel like it's a touchy subject, because that should be acceptable. That's how you spread joy, and that's where the laughter comes in, and that's how people don't forget. Like, because you got to have the balance. You got the pipeline right there, and then at night you got to have some laughter. And so you want people to be jovial. You want people to have a good time, right? But you're not there to party, right? You're not there for a festival, but there's people gathering from all over the world. So I feel it's a touchy subject to express in words.
Okay. Cool. Well, thanks everybody for being a part of this. Thank you for joining the Ridiculous Hour. I appreciate that. This is a very important subject that I'm glad you're tuning into and caring about. The only thing holding you back from everything you ever desired is your lack of imagination. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for joining us. Much love and namaste.
Black snake killers, water's life.